You already felt it. That's the first thing I want to say. Before anything else, before the details, before the description, before I explain what I keep seeing when I sit with your energy right now, you already felt it. There was a moment, specific, probably not dramatic, probably not the kind of thing you could point to and say definitively there. That's when I knew, more like a flicker, a brief wrongness in the texture of something ordinary. And you noted it, filed it, kept moving. That's what you do. But it stayed with you. In the background, quiet but present, the way a sound stays in your ear after the source has stopped. And you've been doing that thing you do, running it over and over, examining it from different angles, trying to determine whether what you felt was accurate perception or whether you were reading too much into something. You're not reading too much into something. I want to say that clearly before we go anywhere else. What you felt was real. What your instincts registered in that moment or in that accumulation of small moments. Because sometimes it's not one thing. Sometimes it's a pattern that your nervous system identified before your conscious mind had enough data to name it that was accurate. That was your perception working exactly as it's supposed to. The question isn't whether something is happening. The question is what and who and what you're going to do with that information. Let me describe the energy of the person involved, because this isn't a stranger. That's the first thing that keeps coming through, and I want to name it because it changes everything about the dynamic. This isn't someone operating on the periphery of your life, someone you barely know, someone whose behavior toward you has limited impact. This is someone with access, someone who knows enough about your life, your routines, your vulnerabilities, your blind spots, the specific places where your trust has historically made you less vigilant to work within them. And that access didn't happen by accident. They either earned it over time or they positioned themselves carefully to obtain it, or both. And they've been using it, not loudly. That's what I keep coming back to. Not in ways that are easy to catch. In the specific way of someone who is intelligent enough to understand that the moment they become visible, the moment their behavior becomes too obvious to explain away, the advantage disappears. So they've been careful, measured, operating in the spaces where there's enough ambiguity that each individual instance can be rationalized, explained, given a reasonable alternative interpretation. But here's the thing about patterns. Individual instances can be rationalized. Patterns can't, not indefinitely. And what's been happening is the accumulation of enough individual instances that the pattern is becoming visible. Not fully visible yet, but visible enough that your system registered it. That flicker you felt, that brief wrongness, that was the moment the pattern crossed the threshold of what your instincts could quietly absorb and started demanding conscious attention. Hold on, because I keep getting something about the nature of what they're trying to get away with, and I want to try to describe it without being vague. It's not one thing. That's what I keep finding when I sit with this. It's not a single action, a single deception, a single moment of betrayal that I can point to cleanly. It's more layered than that, more ongoing. There's something happening across time, a series of choices they've been making consistently that serve their interests at your expense. And the categories keep shifting as I try to name them. So let me try to describe it in a way that covers the different forms it might be taking for different people watching this. For some of you, this is financial. Someone in your life, a colleague, a business partner, a family member, someone with some form of access to your resources or your opportunities is benefiting from something that belongs to you, without your full knowledge or consent. Taking credit, redirecting something, positioning themselves to gain from your effort or your ideas or your access in a way you haven't fully seen yet. For others of you, this is relational. Someone is managing your perception of a situation, of a relationship, of another person, of a dynamic in a way that serves them, feeding you information selectively, shaping what you know and don't know in a way that keeps you behaving in a manner convenient to them. For others, it's both. But across all of these, the common thread, the thing I keep finding regardless of the specific form, is that this person is counting on something. They're counting on your fairness. That's the part I want to stay with because it's the most important thing in this reading. They've identified consciously or instinctively that your fairness is the thing that protects them. Your commitment to giving benefit of the doubt, your discomfort with accusing someone without sufficient evidence, your integrity around not wanting to be the kind of person who assumes the worst. Those are genuine virtues, real ones, things that make you someone worth knowing. And they are being used against you. Because while you're being fair, while you're holding space for the innocent interpretation, while you're reminding yourself not to jump to conclusions, while you're giving them one more opportunity to demonstrate that your concern was unfounded, they're continuing. The fairness that makes you trustworthy is what's giving them room to operate. And I want to be very precise here because this is nuanced and I don't want to turn you into someone who abandons fairness. That would be its own kind of loss. What I'm saying is more specific than that. There is a difference between fairness and willful blindness. And somewhere in the gap between what you've noticed and what you've allowed yourself to conclude, that line has been crossed, not by your failure, by their design. There's an image that won't leave me alone. A game of cards. And you're playing honestly, showing your hand when the rules require it, following the structure, operating in good faith within the system both of you agreed to. And across the table, they're doing something different. Not obviously, not in a way that triggers the formal mechanisms of the game, but differently in the small margins. In the moments between the visible moves and the frustrating thing, the specific frustration I keep feeling in this energy is that even now, even as something in you knows, a part of you is reluctant to name it because naming it means a confrontation, means a disruption, means the end of a certain kind of peace that comes from not having made it real yet. You've been protecting a version of the situation that no longer exists. Actually, no. That's not quite right either. You've been protecting the relationship or the arrangement or the version of this person that you originally encountered, the version that seemed trustworthy, that seemed to have good intentions, that gave you reason to extend the access you extended. And letting yourself fully see what's happening now means letting go of that original version. That's the real cost. Not the confrontation, not the disruption, the grief of knowing that something you believed in wasn't what you thought it was. The more I sit with this, the more I keep finding something specific about timing. They're getting closer to something. Whatever the end goal is, whatever outcome their behavior has been building toward, they're approaching it. And I keep getting the sense that the window for them to complete what they're attempting is narrowing, that there are conditions present right now that favor their plan that won't be present indefinitely. And this is actually why this is coming to your attention now. Not randomly, not because the universe decided today was the day to reveal things, but because there's an urgency to this, energetically a sense that this is a moment where awareness and action genuinely matter, where the difference between seeing this clearly now versus later has real consequences. The situation has a timeline, and you are currently ahead of it. Barely, but ahead. That matters. I want to talk about what Virgo specifically needs to do with this information, because Virgo can go one of two ways in a situation like this, and I think it's worth naming both. The first way is the full analytical deep dive, gathering evidence, building the case, constructing the complete picture before making any move, which is thorough and intelligent and very Virgo, and also potentially too slow for this particular situation. The second way is the impulse to confront immediately, to name what you know right now with what you currently have before they get further. Neither of those is quite right. What I keep getting for you is something in between, something more strategic than immediate confrontation, but more timely than the full evidence gathering process. Become observant without becoming reactive. Let them believe you haven't noticed. Not through dishonesty, through the specific discipline of not tipping your hand before you need to. Because right now, your greatest advantage is that they think they're still invisible. They think the access they have is still unexamined. They think the ambiguity is still working in their favor. Let them think that a little longer while you quietly gather what you need. Virgo is extraordinarily good at this when they choose to be, at appearing normal while internally cataloging everything, at maintaining the surface of a situation while underneath, the picture is becoming very clear. Use that skill now, deliberately, consciously, with intention. There's something I keep picking up about a specific moment coming, a reveal, not necessarily a dramatic confrontation, though for some of you that is exactly what's coming, more like a moment where something becomes undeniable, where the evidence accumulates past the point of alternative interpretation, where even your fairness, even your commitment to benefit of the doubt has nothing left to work with. And in that moment, the choice you're going to face is not about what to do to them. It's about what you owe yourself. Because here's what I keep finding about Virgo in situations of genuine betrayal. The anger arrives quietly, under control, processed internally before it ever reaches the surface. And by the time you act, you've already moved through the emotional part to somewhere more clear-headed, more practical, more oriented toward resolution than retaliation. That is a profound strength. Use it here. Whatever action this situation ultimately calls for, whatever boundary needs to be enforced, whatever access needs to be revoked, whatever conversation needs to happen, let it come from that clear-headed place, not from the wound, from the knowing. I want to say something about what comes after this, because situations like this where trust is violated by someone who had access have a tendency to close people down, to make them more guarded across the board, to make the cost of the individual betrayal much larger than the individual incident by changing how a person approaches trust in general. Don't let that happen. I mean that specifically. Don't let this one person's behavior become the lens through which you assess everyone who comes after them. Don't let their willingness to take advantage of your fairness become the reason your fairness disappears. Your fairness is not the problem here. Their integrity is the problem. And those are two different things located in two different people, and they should not be confused with each other. What they did says something definitive about who they are. It says nothing about whether your instinct to trust was a mistake. It was not a mistake. It was the correct response to the information you had at the time. You trusted based on evidence. They violated that trust despite it. That's on them. Completely the last thing. You're going to handle this, not with drama, not with the kind of explosion that would actually give them more information about how much they affected you than you want them to have. With the specific, quiet, absolutely devastating Virgo competence that emerges when something finally crosses the line from manageable to unacceptable. They miscalculated. They saw the patience and thought it was unlimited. They saw the fairness and thought it was unconditional. They saw the composure and thought it meant nothing was being registered. Everything was being registered. And what's coming, what they don't see yet because they still believe they're ahead of this, is the moment when Virgo stops absorbing and starts acting clean, precise, with exactly the amount of force the situation requires and not one drop more. They thought they could get away with it because they've gotten away with it so far. They haven't gotten away with anything. They've just been operating on borrowed time. And August is when that time runs out. If something in this touched, something you've been sensing but couldn't fully name, if a piece of this landed somewhere true, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what resonated. Even just a few words. It means more than you know.